It'll go live. And welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be. Welcome to the Groovy Podcast. This is a special edition live from the Gradle Summit we're in Palo Alto, right? Yep, in Palo Alto, California. My name is Ken Cousin. I'm joined this time by two of the Gradle people. We have the inimitable Luke Daley, who I think appeared on this same podcast a year ago at the Gradle Summit. That's right, almost to the day, right? And we also have one of my favorite developers who has recently joined Gradle as well.
He is real.
Yeah, that we have Tim Yates. And the one thing you don't know about Tim necessarily until you've met him in person is, oh my God, this guy is so tall. I had no clue. I feel very short in this company, right? But we're very happy to be here. We just wanted to talk about the conference and about what you're doing and how things are going. So let's see. So just for the summary for those people who have not yet been available or haven't been to one, the Gradle Summit takes place over 2 days. This year we have 3 parallel tracks, right? We've got an Android track, and remember the names of the other two? Or there's a performance, I believe, and then there's basic capabilities, but I don't remember the exact details. But the videos are going to be available very quickly this time. There should be videos tonight for today's.
Going on tonight, yeah.
Right, and then more for Friday's talks as well tomorrow. There's been good attendance, or at least a couple hundred people here, and a lot of enthusiasm, especially about the new developments under Gradle 4.0, which has been released now, right? Perfectly. In fact, I upgraded all my Android apps with 4 and the 3.0 alpha plugin, and so far so good. They seem to be working. So, pardon me?
Faster?
It seems to be. I didn't try anything difficult, but I'm mostly just doing relatively small and simple apps anyway. These are things for the book that we give away. Yeah, and are supposed to be involved in my presentation tomorrow, which, I really ought to start writing. What do you think? That's a joke. Okay, at any rate, let's start with Luke. So, and please feel free to have your beer while we're doing this. That's more than welcome.
Thank you, most accommodating.
Oh, yeah. So you gave at least one talk today, and you're also part of the keynote. You want to mention what it was about?
Sure. So I work on the Gradle Enterprise, part of Gradle, which is something that we announced last year, pretty much, at this conference. And it's progress described as services, so server network-based services that make Gradle even better. So there's 2 parts to it. One, build scans, which has been around for a while now, and it's really when you have build scans enabled, every Gradle build that you run sends off the information about what happened to the system. It collects it, processes it, and gives you a nice user interface to that, so you can kind of look at it. All kinds of information that you don't really have access to currently, really fine-grained performance information, and it's all kind of shared by a web page. So when you backtrack a little bit, you run a build, at the end of it you get a URL for the build scan. That's now completely shareable, a kind of persistent record of what happened, all kinds of great information in there. So really useful for just debugging what happened in your build. So you had some kind of test failure or compile issue. It's a very effective and efficient interface for kind of drilling into that, as opposed to kind of scrolling up and looking through the log or going and find a report file on disk. You just follow the URL and there it is. And being centralized, it's really shareable as well. So if you're looking at it and thinking, well, I don't know what any of that means, and it doesn't look like it's my problem, it's somebody else's, you can actually just send that person that link. And we've had that kind of general capability for CI for a long time, because CI happens essentially, but this is for local builds as well. So this just happened on my machine, and I want to tell somebody else about it. I don't have to go and copy paste the output, send that to them, and they say, well, can you also send me this file, and have that back and forth. You just send them a link to it, and they have the information right there. So that's one part of it. And then it also collects that information over time. So all of those builds that are happening are kind of aggregating in that system, and that's becoming more and more valuable information. Right? So you can compare between 2 scans, so compare different aspects and show you what's different in the dependencies, what's different in the inputs between certain tasks, what's different in the environment. Really useful for debugging and that kind of stuff. So really, best described as more information than you've ever had about builds, and more accessible and more shareable. And that's the build scan side, and what we also released recently is the build cache.
Right.
Yeah. So Gradle 3 something or 4, I think, was our first public release that had the build cache functionality in. And anybody who's used Gradle before has used incremental build. Right? It's one of the key things having fast builds, the Gradle's ability to reuse work that's already done. The build cache is the same principle, except instead of being just work that was done in the most preceding build, it's now effectively any build. So the work done from build gets pushed into a cache. There are different kinds of caches, and then later builds can reuse that. So obviously the fastest way to do something is to not do it at all. So by reusing something that's been previously done. So Gradle Enterprise provides build scans and a remote and shared cache backend. So by installing Gradle Enterprise, you can have all your Gradle builds, push their output to this, and then your colleague's machine or whatever build stuff from your cache. And gets the benefit of just being able to use it without building it.
Both of those things have such a big impact on performance. It's been amazing. The big focus of Gradle in the past year anyway has been very much on performance, and the demonstrations that were done simply in the keynote this morning were somewhat dazzling. You could get 1 or 2 orders of magnitude depending on how much you're able to cache, and even downloads all happen in parallel now, and dependencies, which is amazing. And one of those things that made me go, oh geez, I don't know why that wasn't obvious, and I'm really glad that's there. By the way, again, for those who are not aware, the nice thing about the build scans is that you don't have to have Gradle Enterprise to try those out. They come with Gradle. I don't remember what version started it, somewhere around 3 something.
Well, version 2.0. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think we were on 2.10 or something when we first released it, but we support back to that. Yeah.
So with 3.4 and above, I believe it is, you can just put _scan at the end of your command. Now you do have to, and it's always amusing to me, you sign a license agreement by putting a little block of Gradle DSL, if you will, inside your build file. I have put that in my init script, of course, so I don't have to worry about it. That reminds me, I do want to mention that one things we did this week, or last week, I guess, is we finally launched the new Gradle Guides.
Yes. Yep.
So that's at guides.gradle.org, which redirects to a site inside Gradle. But whatever, that URL will be pretty stable. Yep. And one of the guides that, of course, we have right under the getting started ones is how to do a build scan and how to make it happen every time. The thing about the build scans is that they are completely free, but you do send data to Gradle, where it's assembled on your dependencies and your performance and everything. What you get with the enterprise tool, of course, is that you can have them all hosted locally on site, plus the huge history and the comparisons and the extra recommendations.
So scans.gradle.com is effectively the kind of the free build scan service, and you can configure any build. You put the build scan plugin in. Yeah, it's on the consent to the license agreement. Lawyer approved.
Right, no doubt. I always forget that it's scans.gradle.com because I just get a link and I click on it. I forget. At least now I don't have to get the email every time and click that. At least I've done that much.
So that's a great way to get started. And for my open source projects I work on and whatnot, I have all the CI builds, pumping scans to scans.gradle.com. Once you're used to that interface for looking at build results and kind of debugging things, it's hard to go back to anything else, to be honest. So,
I still like the test report output that Gradle has always put together, but of course a lot of that is available within the scans as well. So it's very powerful.
Searchable, and it has some extra data, and the fact that the linking is a really big thing that kind of is non-obvious when you first start using it, but being able to pass around links to very specific information, it's kind of, when you need somebody else's help to work on it or someone to look at it, it's such a fast and efficient way.
Especially when you're a distributed team. Because as a distributed team, if we tried doing that without it,
I think I saw Stefan Oehme demonstrate that in one of his talks as well today. So it's a very impressive capability, and again, the speed changes have been just amazing. And then that brings up the build cache as well. The local build cache is available to everybody, and I believe that's built into 4.0. Is that right?
4.0,
4.0, and then the remote caching is part of the enterprise tool, but other vendors will be providing. I know Baruch would make me say something about JFrog, but whatever.
So, from Gradle's point of view, you can write your own custom cache adapter or connector fairly simply. Right? And Gradle provides the local cache implementation, which uses a directory in your machine. and also has a HTTP interface. And
Right.
the HTTP interface is relatively simple. Right? Anybody who's done any kind of request stuff would get it. It's just plain HTTP to get some inputs. Right? So what Gradle Enterprise provides in terms of cache is the sort of administration and monitoring ability over these caches as well. So it's more than just providing the cache itself. It's how do you provision that, how to keep it running, and we're just getting started here as well. So what we released in the latest Gradle Enterprise release, which is 2017.4, which is 2 or 3 days ago now, we released is the standalone cache node. So we now ship a Docker container image.
Oh, right.
Which is it's a fully functioning HTTP cache. Right, so you can, without Gradle Enterprise, even just go and install that as a single command, get it from Docker Hub, and there you go, you have it in cache. So you can use it without Gradle Enterprise, no problem. If you have a Gradle Enterprise installation, you connect it up, it talks to Gradle Enterprise, tells Gradle Enterprise about what's going on, you can configure it and monitor it.
I like that in the build itself. It's just, I think you use settings.gradle when you configured it.
Cache configuration comes from settings.gradle.
Yeah, and you put in one little block just to say where the enterprise server was, and something about what you were caching, I think it was.
By default, it doesn't push to a remote cache, it just consumes. So
Right.
I turned it on to say yes, right to the cache.
You said push equals true, I think, or something like that. And you're done. I mean, once it knows where the server is or whatever your implementation of this cache product is, you get the benefits throughout the team, as you say. And that's that has the potential to be a major impact, because so many development builds are incremental changes, and then being able to take advantage of a cache is a huge benefit.
And I think that one thing that we knew it was going to be effective, but we were surprised at how common this was, is that people building just after the CI build has just built that commit.
Oh, okay.
Right? So someone's checked in, CI built done the work, then a couple minutes later you do that same work, the CI build is pushing to the cache, you just get all that for free.
So basically the CI server is pre-populating your cache for you. Yeah. Excellent. Now let me bring this to Tim for a moment. I have to mention I have known about Tim for many years. Mostly I run into Tim on Stack Overflow, where his answer rating, oh my goodness. It's in fact, I know some people, see, I've kind of given up on ever answering a question on Stack Overflow because all the simple questions that I can handle get answered unbelievably fast, most of which by you, by the way. And the hard ones, I don't feel like taking the time to dig in. But I ask questions there fairly often, and it only has to happen half a dozen times where any question I ask is answered by the same person over and over again that I start to get the idea that, wow, I should get to know this person. So I've been working on this book, this Modern Java Recipes book, and I started asking a couple of questions on Stack Overflow related to that, and of course Tim was answering questions there too. So I said, you know what, I'm going to contact him directly and cut out the middleman here.
That's awesome.
And in the past, 6 months, something like that? Something like that. It's 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
I've just been sending you questions, and of course, he answers on evenings, weekends, wherever, doesn't care about time zones. I said, O'Reilly will give you some money for this. And he's like, yeah, whatever, buy him a pint. It's like, oh my goodness. So I was so thrilled when shortly after this started happening.
I think that you need to say that Tim's British to make that make sense.
Yeah, well, Manchester, right?
Yeah.
Based in Manchester,
based
in the UK, Manchester, England, across the Atlantic Sea, right? Yeah. Now, that's a seriously dated reference, I suppose, but okay, from here. But I'm seriously dated. So at any rate, I was very, very happy when I heard that you were you had an opportunity to join Gradle. And I wanted to contact Hans directly and say, no, take this guy. Whatever you have to do, you will be so thrilled. And it turned out they didn't need any help to figure out, So when did you actually join?
So I joined Gradle about 6 to 8 weeks ago. I think it's about 8 weeks.
And which team are you a part of? I mean, I know it's really just an engineering organization, but...
So I'm part of the Gradle Enterprise team. So I've been working for the past 4 weeks on the build node, so the Cepro build cache node.
Oh, okay.
And the integration of that with Gradle Enterprise to try and get that so it's easy to set up and easily containerizable and that sort of thing. And so, yeah.
And working on a truly international team. I mean, people are all over.
That's one of the tricky things to get used to. Yeah, it's I think we're in 9 time zones. I think something like that. So yeah. It works amazingly well.
It does seem to. It's very, very active on the asynchronous communication mechanisms like Slack. Like, oh my goodness, just keeping up with Slack is part-time job right there, you know. But it's true, if you've got people, I mean, my nominal boss, if you will, you know, because I'm doing part-time work for Gradle, is, you know, Piotr is in Krakow, yes. I believe. And of course, I work with Skull Kronya, who's done a lot of the Gradle guides as well. And he was in South Africa, then he was in the UK, now he's in Andorra. And the only thing that changed from our point of view is what time zone he happened to be in at the moment. Didn't matter. And of course, I get to deal with them, and then I can quit work before the California people get going too much. Yeah. So, but you've been involved in software development. I don't really know your background. So were you a career changer? Were you always in IT?
No, I was always in IT. I got to the age where I was told by my father that I had to either get a job or go to university, but I wasn't staying at home. So yeah, the one thing I could do was like write programs. So I went to Manchester Uni and never left Manchester. Did a placement at CERN for a year.
Coding in what?
C.
At CERN?
Yeah,
wow, cool.
Electronic alarm servers at CERN in C. And then went through expert systems and all sorts of things.
Which is all coming back now, just with different labels.
All now, coming around.
And now they call it machine learning and AI. Back then it was expert systems.
It's weird how things go in cycles. So like the late 90s, neural networks were a dirty word because nobody liked the black box. Whereas now it's all turned around that everyone wants neural networks because it's a black box.
See, I got involved in some of that in the 80s when it was still popular. And never went anywhere. And then in the late 90s, I was briefly in, believe it or not, an AI group at a research organization where I did some genetic algorithms and neural nets, but not a lot. And then all that went away, and now it's all coming back, right?
Yeah. So TensorFlow and everything.
Where'd you go from there?
So from there, I don't know, I just seem to have been lucky. I just seem to have picked on some, I chose Groovy as something which interested me. So I jumped on Groovy and jumped on Stack Overflow. It's a good way of learning. It's just to answer as many questions as you can.
Yeah.
And when people prove you wrong, that's brilliant. You learn from that as well. So just jumped on that. And then Groovy became this massive thing. And then Groovy became the build language of choice at Gradle. And then, I was looking around for a web framework and just jumped on Ratpack. That was one that grabbed my attention most.
So you were a Ratpack person?
Yeah, and I've ended up working on Ratpack.
Are you still the head of that project, or has that been handed off to?
No,
that's still you.
It's in my copious spare time.
And you put up with Dan Woods on a regular basis and stuff. I now my estimation of your patience has gone up. You know, I'm impressed there.
The funny story about Tim, when he joined a couple weeks ago, I was looking. Had some problem. I was trying to do something with regular expressions in Groovy or something like that. Of course, after 10 seconds, what do you do? Straight into Google, first Stack Overflow result.
Right.
And I've become, maybe other people are better at this, but I've become blind to, who wrote it. I just want to get the answer and get out. I was looking at it, and I just happened to kind of, at the corner of my eye, see Tim's. I know it pretty well. His picture. And it was 2 days into starting at Gradle. Let's hammer across this, and of course, Tim's answer. But I could have just reached out on Slack and got the answer from him. But,
you basically did.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, it's. I do have one Stack Overflow joke, by the way. Yeah. It was that the maintainers of Stack Overflow have the hardest job in IT because they have to restore the system without access to Stack Overflow. Yeah. So that's my only gag from that one. And as I recall, they did a DOS attack on themselves, a denial of service about a year ago, where they tried to do some sort of what turned out to be an unbounded regular expression. They were doing a search on, brought the whole system down, and somebody tweeted that joke again. Of course, it might have been me, I don't know, but I just reused the same gags over and over again. So did you got involved in Groovy and then in Ratpack, and then that led you to Gradle itself?
Yes, so I just knew people who worked for Gradle, so I was looking for a new role, and then reached out to a couple of people, and saw that Gradle had roles, applied, I think, a few Skype interviews later.
Yeah, so I saw Tim's resume or application come in, and I thought, I've got to at least interview this guy to see what he looks like.
Yeah, right. I had no idea what.
I've been in my little half a speech bubble for about 8 years.
I had no idea what you looked like at all.
I know.
I actually contacted him, what was it, a week ago or something. I said, look, I finally figured out this completable future application. I got to talk to somebody about it. Are you available? And of course he made time, and of course we went through it, and now it's in the book, so we'll see what happens.
One of the hardest things was losing my anonymity.
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 Very good. So you're still enjoying yourself at Gradle? I mean, it's quite a transition, I would think.
It's a transition, but it's effectively a dream job. Like, how can you not to like sort of like working with just people you've known from all over the world for years and years and years, working on something that's really exciting, working on something that's going to fill a gap. There's just this massive gap in the whole pipeline of building software. That you watch your CI servers, you watch your apps when they're running, but in between those two things, you have basically no monitoring, no way of looking back over history, and no anything like that. To be able to work on something which is filling that gap between that and the whole sort of like software pipeline is just really exciting.
I mean, even the basic build speed capabilities have improved so much that any comparison with Maven these days is you just have to take the person who's rooting in favor of Maven and say, look, you haven't seen anything in the past 6 months, have you? I mean, that's the only issue, is they may not realize how much things have changed in the last version or two, I suppose would be the way to say it.
I mean, there's been several breakthroughs on the way, but it's a long road we've taken to get performance to where it is, and several key breakthroughs. And the great thing about performance numbers is they're not subjective.
Now, the other thing that's been going on at the conference is that there's been a substantial increase in the interest in the Android community now. Back in, I believe it was 2013 at Google I/O, where they announced that Gradle would be the build tool for Android applications and that Android Studio would be the default IDE. That was basically my trigger to learn IntelliJ, because I was an Eclipse person up to that point, and I'm going to have to move over sooner or later, and that's like, okay, if that's going to be it, well, this year, there's an entire track on Android people, and we even have Jake Wharton's here. He was talking about Kotlin, and others. But there's been a lot of effort with Google to improve the Gradle Android plugin, I suppose, or Gradle plugin for Android. I think that's the abbreviation I saw was GPA 3 or whatever, which is an alpha at this point, which rests on Gradle 4. And I have seen significant improvements in speed, but again, I don't work on the sorts of apps where that's going to jump out. But I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of big results from them when they're finished, because they're obviously not finished the plugin yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's some big stuff to come. But already the results. I mean, Hans showed a few of these in his keynote. It's day changing. If you're doing this stuff day to day and building stuff, it's all about the difference you've from minutes down to seconds. So that really completely changes the game about how you use the build system and how you interact with it. You don't avoid doing builds anymore because
it's just another area that's desperately needed, where there is a huge need out there for speed improvements in the build, and that's what we're going to be providing now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Now, because everything so far has been so upbeat and positive, I have to say something about the move to Kotlin. Okay. Now, I am still a huge fan of Groovy. I still prefer Groovy over anything. I understand that when a few seconds, or 1 second improvement in build performance translates to millions of dollars, and when you multiply by a certain number of developers times a certain number of projects and tasks and everything. So I understand that under the hood in Gradle, it's largely Java, right? Just statically typed languages that are optimized and everything. But the DSL is still Groovy. Now there's a new effort. I think they just changed the name, right, to call it the Gradle Kotlin DSL now. And Rodrigo, I'm blanking on his last name. Oh my!
Put me on the spot here.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Rodrigo. That's what his name is on Slack. So that's
I have it, of course, because I have my.
Sorry, Rodrigo. If you ever see this.
Well, no, we could pretend. I should get one of you to say something so that I can go ahead and search the Gradle Summit, and look at the schedule there, because he's right on it. At any rate, Rodrigo is the one who is working on the Gradle support, the Kotlin support in general, and he's giving a talk tomorrow.
Yep, last session tomorrow.
No, I'm doing the last session. I think is he also doing the last session? So I don't get to see him. No, Cedric is doing the last session, which I don't get to see there. Rodrigo de Oliveira, I suppose that's probably close. Yes, it's called, what is it, Pleasant Build Script Authoring with Kotlin. And there was a talk today, of course, watching, finally got to see Jake Wharton. He was actually presenting basics of Kotlin, a lot of which I've seen, but he also applied it to some of the scripting inside of Gradle. Now, again, I get the sense we still have some time on that. I don't get the sense it's really ready.
Yes, in terms of we haven't cut the 1.0 release, so
Right.
we haven't said that, look, this is 1.0, all the significance that 1.0 implies. But there's been, we've now been at this for a little over a year, but there's lots to do because it's not about replacing Groovy with Kotlin. It's about improving the entire build authoring experience. So it's kind of like not swapping out an engine of the car. It's kind of reimagining the whole experience. So it's
but it gives you great IDE support. But I mean, that's not a big shock when you're talking about a language being created by an IDE manufacturer.
That's a big point. But it's not just our effort here. We've been partnering with JetBrains on this, and they've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of work. So it really, it's about more than language at this point. It's really is an experience because we heard this from many people over many years saying that they want a better authoring experience for build scripts and build logic. That was a key pain point for a lot of people. But us coming from the Groovy community, we don't feel that as strongly. We're very comfortable.
I feel frustrated when I hear things like that, just because you give up so much. I know you gain, but IDE integration is not always the number one reason for choosing a language. Now I understand that if you're talking about quote build masters or people who are not necessarily full-time developers, that IDE support is very, very helpful. That they really need something like that. But there are dynamic things you can do in Groovy that are just so nice that I don't think you'd even be ported to Kotlin. I still prefer Groovy in general, but we'll see how that all plays out in the marketplace. I mean, if JetBrains is going to offer to help build Kotlin support into your product, how do you say no, right?
Yes.
Especially if it will yield a much more pleasant experience for people who are not necessarily experienced.
Yeah. And I think you can already see that. I think some of the stuff that Rodrigo demoed even during the keynote required a level of cooperation between the IDE, the language, and the build tool. It's a lot of coordination. It's a lot of man hours or people hours to actually pull off. So
I have to say that was actually my favorite part of the keynote because they structured it as a developer helping someone, or an expert helping a developer use the new API, and it was really clever. They really worked out. It had humor and everything, and Hans saved it to last, so everybody's getting tired and everything, and then they threw in this part, and I thought, boy, that was really well done. I have no idea how much of that was coincidence or whatever, but more power to him. So I really would love to hear Rodrigo talk about it a bit more.
Yeah.
If I'd run into him, I would have asked him to be on this as well. The other thing, of course, about Kotlin is that the big news out of Google, saying they're supporting Kotlin as a first-rate language for Android. I would like them to this year say, and we're going to support Groovy as a first-rate language for Android, because why not?
Xavier is here. We could ask him.
Yeah, I'll try, and because what really the upshot of all that I expect is I have all these videos on Safari. I expected if Google came out and said we're going to support Groovy, then I could add a 0 to my income for that month. So just like I imagine Hadi Hariri can do that now.
Yeah. So you're not being that altruistic about it.
Well, okay, there's a side benefit.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, absolutely. Well, because who knows how long Gradle will put up with me being out there. Again, I never know if the next day they go, you got these guides done, we don't need you anymore. But so far so good.
But the guides are awesome, Ken.
Well, that I should say, but about the guides, I'm doing part of that. Skulk has done a lot of those. Plus, very importantly, while we have focused on the Getting Started guides, we have members of the team writing a lot of these topical guides, so that the guide on the build cache, for example, is outstanding and powerful, very deep, has a lot of expertise in it. We also have one on porting from Maven to Gradle, which of course is very useful. There's a couple more either there or in the works. Coming along, so that we do hope to make this a nice destination for people trying to, get questions without being overwhelmed by the 800-page manual or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just a much better format to consume and absorb that information.
The manual is brilliant, but it is immense.
Yeah,
it is.
It's often not where you want to
Which
start.
also needs to be rewritten, so I really probably do have work to do.
Yeah. You probably stay for a while.
Yeah. Now, is there anything I haven't asked you that you're interested in mentioning, or anything you've worked on, or anything you're planning? I mean, you're still so new. I imagine you're still underwater.
I'm still learning.
That's why I didn't want to put too much pressure on you. I know how overwhelming this place is, you know.
Yeah, I sort of jumped in, started helping with bits, and then the build cache node came up, and it's been pretty full on trying to get that ready for this week.
Yeah. So Tim's bug is why my demo didn't work today.
Is that the one?
No,
not
at all.
I actually no, I can't believe that. That would bring him too far down on the pedestal I have him. You know, I've got him up there with like Paul King and people like that.
Don't tell him about the actual bug.
So I do have to say, my experience at Gradle personally has been surprising in that everybody is so friendly and so helpful and so forgiving of when, I really didn't have time this week to do that. And they're like, okay, we'll do it next week. I'm like, really? I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, which tells you more about my experience in big companies, than anything else. But no, it's been a lot of fun. Anything else we should say about the summit or anything new? I think we've hit most of the major points.
I think so. Actually, it's the fifth summit.
Is it really fifth? Yeah. I think this is my third or fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I love coming in and doing the Gradle Summit each year, meeting all the people here and getting to talk about builds for 2 days and all this kind of stuff.
I will mention, and there's going to be at some point a discussion about this, about the rich plugin community.
Yep.
Andrei Hilovsky is around. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to track him down for now. And the new version of Gradle, the 2.0 version of Gradle is out.
Yep.
That's always been one of my favorite plugins. But there's also a Go plugin and a Python plugin and there's one called Pony, of all things. I don't know that language at all. But the point is that Gradle is trying to break out of the idea of being a JVM-based tool, but is a build tool for anything, for any project that you want to build. And those plugin authors are really trying to help support that whole structure.
Yeah, and we're trying to do better supporting them as well. They're supporting our tool.
Right. So I want to say this was last minute. I appreciate the two of you making time for this. Thank you very much. And of course, this will be up as soon as I basically hit the stop button, just to let you know. And we'll talk to you later in the conference.
Thanks, Ken.
Take care.
Thank you.